Suddenly, Limu's body shook. A bright red light suddenly lit up. Linwan outputted too much gratitude all at once. Limu's body couldn't hold up. Sewer had been completely won over by Limu. Looking at him with a reverent gaze, he sighed and said, "If all the official servants in the world could be like you, sir, how many injustices and sorrows could be avoided in this world?" Limu's face showed a hint of a fever, because he was far from being as righteous as he appeared. The reason he helped Linwan seek revenge, both for the public and for the private, to give Linwan justice and also for his own life. Limu said, "Zhao Yong's second soul must be released first. Otherwise, it is very likely to alert the higher-ups. Send out a more powerful expert to handle this case. By then, even if we are in the right, it will be hard to explain. As for Miss Linwan, you don't need to show up for now. Stay close to Miss Su during this period. You may need to appear in person later." Linwan raised her head and said firmly, "I will listen to Lord's instructions." At this time, Sewer thought of something else and looked at Limu, asking, "Does the young master not know the method of silence?" Limu shook his head, about to say that he did not know. Just then a slender jade hand pressed against his lips. Sewer's voice was soft and gentle. "If the young master needs it, I can teach you. And after Zhao Yong's death, if the young master returns here, I still have something to give you." Limu asked in confusion, "What is it?" Sewer smiled faintly. "You will know when the time comes." In the blink of an eye, it was already dawn when Hanja woke up. His head still hurt badly. The final information remaining in his mind. He injured the foundation of the female ghost, just as he was about to destroy her. Another ghost creature appeared in the lake and pulled all of them into illusion. In the end, he couldn't resist the temptation of the illusion. Completely immersed and lost in desires, he looked around. He realized that it was already bright outside. Several constables lay scattered around him, still breathing, and Zhao Yong's soul is also here. Hanja took out a talisman from his pocket, murmured after putting it away, "This female ghost seems to still have some sense. Killing a court official is a serious crime. If the experts from the Sanjing realm are sent out, she won't have a way out." Hanja kicked the constable, lying on the ground with his foot. "Don't sleep. Wake up." The constable woke up after that. He woke up several other colleagues. In the blink of an eye, Limu saw the smug face of Zhang Shan. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Zhang Shan chuckled.
Limu.
"I had dreams all night last night. It was so great. So great." The other constables also smiled knowingly. "Brother Zhang Shan, let's not talk about this kind of thing." Only Li Si was sitting with his back against a tree, looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle without saying a word. "I wonder what he is thinking about." At this moment, Hanja's face turned gloomy. He said to the crowd, "What are you still standing there for? Go back to the county yamen." Zhang Shan stood up trembling on his legs. "Li, come and help me. My legs are a bit weak." Speaking of this, he seemed to remember something. Asked with a shocked expression on his face, "Why didn't the female ghost kill us and let us have those dreams? Last night I tossed and turned over a dozen times. Now my legs are weak." Limu shook his head. "Maybe she was afraid of getting caught by the authorities. Besides, not everyone is like you. Look at Li Si. She looks calm and composed." Soon, a few people walked out of the woods. As they returned to the city along the official road, seeing a group of people hurriedly walking up the mountain. These people all appear to be ordinary folks. They look hurried, but their faces are unable to conceal their joy and excitement. The Buddha in the temple manifested last night. The light of the Buddha illuminated the sky. "I need to hurry to pay my respects. Let the Buddha bless me with a son next year." Hanja's heart did not feel happy upon hearing this. He coldly snorted and said, "A group of ignorant people. Those bald donkeys sever their emotions and desires. They can't even have children themselves. How can they bless others?" At this moment, Limu thought of the illusion from yesterday. His gaze involuntarily turned towards Li Si. "How did you manage it in that illusion yesterday?" Li Si sighed lightly and said, "I am more familiar with the brothels in Yangqiu City than my own home. I can navigate them even with my eyes closed. I have seen all kinds of situations and tried all sorts of positions. It's only those who are inexperienced and haven't seen the world that can be tempted." Limu was temporarily speechless, but the impulse to kill Li Si was real. Li Si seemed to have figured something out. He grabbed Limu and said, "No, you didn't get tricked yesterday either. You were still a virgin. How could you possibly stay in control in that kind of situation? Are you incapable?" Limu's face instantly turned dark. The curse words he silently muttered became dirtier with each word. He became angry and said, "You are the incapable one. A man should not say it's impossible. Also, do you think you have not been tempted?" Li Si said calmly, "The fact has proven it."
Limu chuckled.
A villainous expression appeared on his face. "Then let me ask you," he said, "who is Ching Ching?" Li Si's body froze in shock. And then he lowered his head and fell into silence. Zhang Shan pulled Li Mu to the side and rebuked him. What are you doing involving Qing Qing in this? Li Mu was puzzled. Why can't Qing Qing be involved? Zhang Shan looked surprised. Have you forgotten? Zhang Shan then patted his head. I forgot about that matter of yours. In any case, you absolutely cannot mention Qing Qing's name in front of Li Si. You cannot even mention any word or sound that is related to Qing. Actually, he wasn't like this before. He used to just pass by the brothels without a second glance. Li Mu asked, is it related to that girl named Qing Qing? Zhang Shan nodded and said, Qing Qing is his childhood sweetheart and fiancée. They grew up together from a very young age and made a marriage agreement when they were very young. Later, Li Mu speculated, did Qing Qing run away with a wealthy person? Zhang Shan's face showed surprise. You remembered? Li Mu shook his head. It's not that I remembered. It's just a common trick in the world. Almost every wealthy person has run away from one or two fiancés. How did the once innocent young man Li Si undergo such a drastic change in temperament to become the person he is today? They soon returned to the Zhao residence. Han Zhe stood in front of the two of them, and with a wave of his hand, he said, young master's soul was lured away by a female ghost. That female ghost had her foundation injured by me last night. Now it should have already dissipated. I will now direct Zhao Yong's spirit to enter his body. After speaking, he made a hand gesture, moved his lips a few times, and quickly said, Shuangling, return to your place. The spirit ball did not enter Zhao Yong's brow. It disappeared and was not seen. The second spirit entered the body. The foolishness on Zhao Yong's face quickly disappeared. Instead, an expression of extreme panic surfaced. Waving his hands frantically, he shouted, go away. Don't kill me. Han Zhe knocked Zhao Yong unconscious with a single palm strike. To prevent him from causing any more disturbance here and delaying important matters, he then took out a talisman and handed it to the Zhao couple. He was frightened. Let him rest for a while first. This talisman has the effect of calming the mind and soothing the spirit. After waking up, have him carry it with him. Thank you, Master Han. Zhao Fu, go prepare a thick thank you gift to give to Master Han. The Zhao family matter is resolved. When Han Zhe walked out of the Zhao residence, he glanced back at Li Mu. His gaze lingered on the Qinghong sword in Li Mu's hand. How did Miss Li Qing's sword end up in your possession? Zhang Shan stepped forward and explained. He encountered an evil demon last time. It was the leader who asked Li Mu to defend for a while. Han Zhe didn't say anything else. Glancing at Li Mu again, he then turned and left. Zhang Shan smirked and said, Han with the surname Han Zhe likes the leader, but the leader doesn't even pay attention to him. Li Mu, put in more effort. I think you have more hope than someone surnamed Han. Li Mu didn't respond. Right now, his most important task is to save his life. How could he have the mindset to think about these things? Even if he really had to think about it, there may not be only one option. Although Li Qing is beautiful, the neighbor Lu girl is not bad either. One has long legs and a fairy-like temperament. The other has a sweet voice, big chest, and is rich. It's really hard for Li Mu to choose one. It's not easy to decide. Li Qing has strength and can protect herself when necessary. But Lu Hanyan offers a buy one get one free deal. Although she is 2 to 3 years older than him. What's wrong with that? The woman with a man 3 years younger hugs a gold brick. Li Mu suddenly realizes that he was overthinking. He shook his head to drive away these unrealistic thoughts from his mind. Zhang Shan turned to look at Li Mu and asked, why are you shaking your head? Li Mu thought for a moment and asked Zhang Shan, if there were 2 women for you to choose from, one understands martial arts and Taoism to protect you, and the other is wealthy. Which one do you choose? Zhang Shan licked his lips and said, how can a man let a woman protect him? I choose the wealthy one. Li Mu looked at Li Si and asked, which one do you choose? Li Si asked back, why do I have to choose? Li Mu stopped in his tracks upon hearing this. At that moment, he seemed to have realized something. Yeah, only kids have to make choices. I want both of them. After several catchers left the Zhao's residence, a woman carried the brewed medicinal soup to the room. Yong, drink your medicine. This is a recipe for calming the mind and nourishing qi. Mother purposely added frosting inside. Drink it while it's hot. When the woman here puts down the medicinal soup, with a somewhat displeased look on her face, she said, Lin Wan is your fiancé. You can be so heartless. Zhao Yong gritted his teeth and said, I am also doing this for the Zhao family. The woman sighed deeply. Despite what people in the county say, she had completely disappeared. Just in case. We still need to make some arrangements. In any case, your wedding must not have any mistakes. Li Mu went straight to the duty room when he returned to the yamen. Just as he entered, he saw Old Man Wang lying on the table, sound asleep. He knocked on the table and called out, Old Man Wang, wake up. Old Man Wang climbed up from the table. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and said, Li Mu is back. Do you want to play a couple of rounds? Li Mu waved his hand and said, we'll talk later when I have time. The Zhao family's case has been resolved. Please quickly make a record. After we're done, I still have to go home and catch some sleep. Old man Wang yawned and said, please help me go to the household office to get Zhao Yong's file. After a moment, Old man Wang sprayed his mouth and said, this Zhao Yong is quite interesting. No wonder he was possessed by evil spirits. Zhao Yong was born in the year of Bingwu. There are 4 missing elements in the 8 characters. Fire element is predominant. Despite some deficiencies, it is still a rare fire-dominant constitution. If it is cultivation, the accomplishments will be twice the result with half the effort compared to ordinary people. And his hunper is also a great supplement to demons and ghosts. It's a pity that no one guided him into cultivation in his early years. Limu was startled. The fire element physique, a great supplement. Limu furrowed his brow. The thought that he had originally made up his mind about was now somewhat shaken. Linwan and Sewer are lying. Is Zhao Yong's 5-element body just a coincidence? Even though he has not known Sewer and Linwan for long. But if they lie, why did Linwan obstruct Limu's investigation of Zhao Yong? He didn't swallow Zhao Yong's soul at the first time. Intuition told him. They did not lie. Of course, based solely on their words, Limu could not ascertain Zhao Yong's guilt. Limu returned home with a sense of chaos looming. However, he saw a small figure sitting on the doorstep, dozing off. Beside him was the food box that Limu was already very familiar with. I don't know if it's out of guilt or pity. Every morning, he has the little maid come to deliver breakfast. It has become one of Lu Hanyan's daily routines. He heard footsteps approaching. The girl rubbed her eyes and said excitedly, Li Gongzi, you're back? Limu picked up the food box on the steps and asked, did you buy too much breakfast again? The little maidservant nodded foolishly. Limu smiled and said, come in and eat together. Limu was already used to having breakfast with her every day. Finished eating 1 basket of steamed buns and a bowl of porridge. He's already 70% full. Glancing at the maid who still seemed unsatisfied, she asked, not full yet? Wanwan blushed and shook her head shyly. Limu laughed. I'll give you some to eat later, the little girl said while waving her hand. In fact, her heart was already blooming with joy. Soon, Limu brought the noodles to the table and placed it in front of her, saying, eat. Wanwan looked at the noodles with starry eyes, drooling. With a contented heart, Limu started his happy mealtime. Breakfast was on his mind. Originally, he could have just spent a few cents on the street to buy a few steamed buns to solve the problem. Now he has to cook by himself. It's either a bowl of plain noodles or a bowl of egg fried rice. You should know that eggs are not cheap. Limu finally made up his mind to replenish his nutrition himself. The maid finished her meal and wiped her mouth clean. She picked up the food box and said, thank you, young masterly. I'll go back first. Limu waved his hand. Keep going like this. I'm afraid I won't even be able to afford a meal for myself. On the other side of the yard, Lu Hanyan looked at the oil stains remaining at the corner of the little maid's mouth. She pointed at her forehead and said, how many times have I told you? Come back right after finishing delivering the meal. Don't always mooch off others for food and drink, the maid said with her head down. The noodles cooked by Master Li are so delicious. Lu Hanyan said impatiently, then you can't eat someone else's food every day. Their monthly salary isn't much. It's all been eaten by you. The girl thought for a moment and said, then I'll give him my dowry money. Lu Hanyan sighed helplessly. Okay. You win, she said. Wait for me at home. I'll go find him. Lu Hanyan turned and walked out of the house. A knock sounded on the neighboring courtyard door. Limu had just fallen asleep when he heard the knocking from outside. He got out of bed with an annoyed expression. At this time, who is looking for me? Limu walked through the courtyard. Opened the courtyard door. Seeing Lu Hanyan standing at the door, Lu Dao said, Miss Lu, do you have something to discuss? Lu Hanyan looked at Limu's weak appearance. There was a little more sympathy in his heart. Then he said somewhat sheepishly, there is something I'd like to ask Master Li for help with. You see, I am busy with shop matters during the day. Wanwan is home alone. She doesn't know how to cook. Can she have meals at your place? I can pay you in silver coins. Limu didn't know what it was about. Without even thinking, he said, no need for silver coins. I will work harder in the future. The meal for several people. Lu Hanyan's attitude was very firm as she said, absolutely not. Wanwan can eat a lot of food by herself. I will give you 10 taels of silver every month. Consider it her food money. Although Limu is poor, he is poor with dignity. He rejected Lu Hanyan's offer of 10 silver coins. Although Miss Lu was helping me with good intentions. But how can one not able to spend 10 taels of silver within a month? Those who don't know might think I'm being kept by someone. But I only earn 500 won as my monthly salary. It's really difficult to support Wanwan. How about this? 1 tael of silver per month. If it's not enough, I'll give it back to you. Lu Hanyan thanked him and said, thank you, Master Li. If it's not enough, just let me know. Sending off Lu Hanyan. Li Mu closed the courtyard gate again. But as soon as he turned around, there was another knocking on the door from outside. Li Mu opened the courtyard gate in confusion. Miss Liu, is there anything else? At this moment, a hand was placed on Li Mu's shoulder. Zhang Shan stood outside the door and said anxiously, Li Mu, you have to testify for me. Soon, Li Mu followed him back home. As soon as they entered the house, they saw Zhang Shan's wife. With an angry expression on her face, she was holding a broom and glaring at Zhang Shan. Li Mu quickly said, Sister-in-law, you have really misunderstood him this time. Yesterday, when we went out to investigate a case, we encountered a powerful evil spirit. He was affected by ghost magic and barely survived. How could he possibly go to the brothel to fool around again? The woman obviously believes more in what Li Mu said. But she still looked at Zhang Shan with a suspicious look and asked, then what happened next? Li Mu coughed lightly and explained. He had his yang energy drained by the female ghost. He probably won't be able to engage in intimate activities for the next month. The woman's expression gradually softened. Zhang Shan heaved a sigh of relief and said, How many times do I have to say it? I did not have an affair with Li Si. You still don't believe me. The woman glared at him fiercely. Li Si is not a good person. Look at Li Mu. Both are surnamed Li, but the difference is so big. In the future, stay away from Li Si. Zhang Shan is trembling behind Li Mu. Dare not speak up to refute. Solved Zhang Shan's trouble, Li Mu said with a smile. That's sister-in-law. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. The woman nodded. Thank you, young Master Li. Come over to our house often in the future. Li Mu planned to leave the city to investigate Lin Wan's affairs. Just as he reached the door, Zhang Shan grabbed his arm nervously and asked. Where are you going? Asked Li Mu. I'm going to investigate a case, he replied. Zhang Shan said eagerly, I'll go with you. He whispered, You don't know. The matter is not over for me yet. When you leave, she will ask me to prove it again in a while. I really can't prove it. I can't prove it at all. Li Mu spoke helplessly. I really have a case to investigate. This case is very dangerous. You are very likely to lose your life if you follow me. Zhang Shan said firmly. I will go with you. Li Mu looked at him seriously and said, I will give you two choices now. The first one is to stay at home and explain well to your wife. The second one. Zhang Shan interrupted him directly. I choose the second one. Half an hour later, a village outside Yangqiu City. Li Mu ultimately couldn't stop Zhang Shan. He could only let him come along. Zhang Shan stood at the village entrance, looking surprised. This isn't your jurisdiction either. What case are you investigating here? Li Mu didn't answer immediately. His eyes fell on a rundown house at the village entrance. Lin Wan used to live there. Zhang Shan stood next to Li Mu, grumbling. Strange. You said to investigate the case, but you're not wearing your uniform. And you also mentioned that this case is very dangerous. There's nothing dangerous here. Li Mu didn't explain much to Zhang Shan. Don't say anything. Don't ask anything. Just stay by my side. Li Mu walked to the dilapidated mansion. Weeds have already grown in the courtyard. Obviously, no one has been here for a long time. At this time, an old man walked over with a look of confusion. Who are you? What are you here for? Li Mu stepped forward and greeted politely. Elderly person, I am a distant cousin of Lin Wan. May I ask if cousin Lin Wan lives here? The elderly person sighed and said, So you're a relative of Lin Wan. 2 months ago, Lin Wan went missing. The Zhaos also came looking for her later. Until now, she has not been found. No one knows where she went. Li Mu looked surprised and asked, My cousin is missing? The old man said with regret. If Lin Wan is still here, she would have been married to the Zhao family soon. Marrying into the Zhao family, the rest of her life would have been full of blessings. Unfortunately, I don't know if she is still alive. Li Mu doesn't need to ask anymore. He already knows what he wants to know. Li Mu did not stay here for long. He bid farewell to the old man and left. Zhang Shan asked, Li Mu, when did you get a cousin? I haven't heard of this before. Li Mu casually replied, Just met recently. Zhang Shan suddenly became interested. Is she beautiful? How does she compare to the leader? Li Mu replied vaguely, saying, It's about the same. Although the leader is good-looking, he is solely dedicated to cultivation. He is not of the same kind as you. You can't always be thinking about the leader. You will end up heartbroken like Li Si. In a village belonging to Lin Wan, a short man stood in front of Lin Wan's old residence and asked the nearby old man, Sir, is Miss Lin Wan at home? The old man scratched his head and said, Why are there so many people looking for Lin Wan today? The short man raised his eyebrows and asked, Has anyone else come to look for her? The old man pointed to the road on the left and said, Just now, there were 2 people. Said they were Lin Wan's cousins. Just left. The dwarf smiled and said, We were originally together. We got separated yesterday. Where did they go just now? On the way back to the county town, Zhang Shan finally couldn't contain his doubts. Li Mu, what case are you investigating? Li Mu simply replied. The The disappearance case of Lin Wan. Zhang Shan is still puzzled. Why are you suddenly investigating this? This is not your jurisdiction. Even if a case occurs, it's not your responsibility. And there are many missing persons cases like this every year. Most of them are related to demons and evil spirits. The leader is not here now. How should we investigate? Limu shook his head and said, it may not necessarily be related to demons and evil spirits. Do you remember what the old man said just now? He said, Lin Wan and Zhao Yong are engaged. Zhang Shan asked in confusion, what? What's wrong with being engaged? Then, it was as if he realized something. Hurriedly, he said, wait a minute. Zhao Yong, the Zhao Yong who is about to marry the daughter of the magistrate? Do you suspect that the Zhao family is responsible for Lin Wan's disappearance? Limu nodded and said, that's what I suspect. I don't want to get you involved. You should go back. Don't interfere in this matter anymore. Zhang Shan was surprised. Do you really want to handle it?
Limu nodded solemnly.
I must handle it. Zhang Shan sighed before speaking slowly. Sometimes I really doubt. Are you still the Limu that I know? It seems like you've changed a lot since you died last time. You used to be very timid. You would hide from any case you encountered. I never actively provoke these things. Limu smiled. It's just because I died once that I understand how to live. His words trailed off. A gloomy voice suddenly sounded from behind. Since you have died once, why don't you cherish your life? Why do you have to touch things that you shouldn't touch? Limu suddenly turned around. They saw a short and very ugly man standing not far behind them. He was looking at them with a sinister gaze. He was surprised in his heart. With his current spiritual perception, he did not know when this person had approached. The dwarf said coldly, touching something that should not be touched means being prepared to die. Limu stood in front of Zhang Shan and said solemnly, this is a person sent by the Zhao family. You go first. Go back to the Yamen and find someone. Zhang Shan turned around without hesitation and ran. He knew very well that staying here would only be a burden to Limu. Zhu Ru snorted coldly. Run. Where do you think you can run to? With a flash of his body, he appeared in front of Zhang Shan. The dwarf raised his hand. A yellow talisman seal was struck out, affixed onto Zhang Shan's chest. Then he felt like his lifted feet weighed 1,000 pounds. His body seemed to be restrained by something. Not only that, his vision and hearing also seemed to be blocked. In front of him was pitch black. He couldn't hear any sound either. The trickster repeated his old trick and threw another paper talisman at Limu. Limu drew the Qinghong sword from his hand with a clang. He proceeded to cut the talisman in half in mid-air. Although his cultivation level is not high, but after thoroughly familiarizing himself with this body, the basic skills of a catcher are still there. The dwarf gasped. I didn't expect you, a small servant, to have such a magical tool in your hand. This deal is a big win. Zhu Ru took out a black piece of paper from his waist and scattered it towards Limu. The paper figures were surrounded by black mist. It emitted a chilling, ghostly aura, floating in the air. In an instant, it surrounded Limu. Limu's heart shook violently. The dwarf in front of him is practicing evil cultivation. Limu has seen Monk Shindu make a move. Limu knows how to deal with this kind of sorcery. There's nothing more suitable than Buddha cultivation magical power. His lips moved slightly. He chanted the Heart Sutra using the muting magical power. Immediately, golden light emanated from his body. When the paper figures touched the golden light, they started to ignite one by one, turning into ashes in an instant. The dwarf took a few steps back, his face showing a look of shock. You actually know the tricks of those bald donkeys, kid. You have successfully angered me. Let you taste my most powerful spell. Celestial Shadow God. Bloodthirsty Star Lord. 4 stars bright. The sun and moon shine eternal. There was a slight look of surprise on Limu's face. This incantation is not unfamiliar to Limu. This is the bloodthirsty incantation of Taoist cultivation. The bloodthirsty incantation is a spell in an introductory book on Taoist cultivation. This spell is extremely powerful. After casting it, it can cause the blood in the recipient's body to boil instantly and result in instant death, despite its immense power. But this curse consists of 300 words in total. It is impossible to recite it in one breath. Moreover, it is generally used to attack those whose strength is lower than oneself. This evil cultivation doesn't believe that Limu can kill him at all. He felt belittled by a Taoist. Limu calmly and unhurriedly took back the Qinghong sword. Standing still, he watched the Taoist chanting spells quietly. The Taoist can use a 300-word spell to curse and kill him today. Limu immediately swallowed the Qinghong sword on the spot. Just as the Taoist was reciting the last few sentences, Limu calmly formed a hand seal and softly spoke. Ready. Suddenly, a white thunderbolt struck from the sky, accurately striking him on the head. Under the thunderbolt, his body was cleaved into charcoal. His soul also dissipated in an instant. A gust of wind passed by. The dwarf's body turned into ashes, completely disappearing between heaven and earth. Limu retracted his gesture, breathed out lightly. Taoism spell magical power. An inch short is an inch strong. But many times, being short may not necessarily be a bad thing. After taking a deep breath to calm his emotions, he turned around and walked in front of Zhang Shan. Zhang Shan felt extremely fearful in his heart. His body could not move, his eyes could not see, and his ears could not hear. Just when he was at a loss, Limu tore off the talisman stuck on him. Zhang Shan suddenly felt lighter and regained his mobility. He looked around and then asked nervously, "Where is that short guy just now?" Limu pointed to the black ashes on the ground and said, "He wanted to kill me, but somehow, a thunderbolt suddenly struck him from the sky and turned him into flying ashes. Maybe he did too many bad things that even the heavens couldn't bear it. He was struck and killed by a thunderbolt directly. It could also be that a mistake was made in the spellcasting, inviting backlash. Anyway, he's already dead. You didn't see it just now. That thunderbolt struck right on target." After hearing this, Zhang Shan spat heavily. And the Zhao family actually used such ruthless methods, hiring an assassin to kill the officials. After the commotion, he asked, "What should we do now?" Limu shook his head and said, "I haven't thought of a solution yet." Zhang Shan suddenly suggested, "How about this? Shall I go find out the magistrate's attitude?" At the government office in Yangqiu City, Magistrate Zhang was having tea in the main hall. A constable knocked on the door and entered. He looked up and saw that it was Constable Zhang Shan. Then he asked casually, "What happened to your face?" Zhang Shan's face showed an embarrassed expression. "I accidentally fell." Zhang County Magistrate glanced at him and said, "I'm not blaming you. At least you have the Zhang surname, a dignified Zhang. Yet you are bullied by the woman in your family like this. It's really embarrassing for our Zhang family." Zhang Shan blushed with shame. He quickly changed the subject and said, "My lord, there is an important case that I must report to you. A woman from the Linwan village has gone missing. After investigating, it is suspected that she has been killed." When the county magistrate heard that there was a murder case in his jurisdiction, his expression became serious. "What exactly happened? Tell me in detail." Zhang Shan spoke up. "A couple of months ago, a woman went missing in Linwan village. She was engaged to be married to her fiancé, but he married someone else while she was missing. This is unreasonable in every way unless—" Magistrate Zhang slammed the table angrily. "Unless he knew that the woman was never coming back. Bring that man to the county office immediately. I will interrogate him personally." Zhang Shan changed the subject again. "But that person is from the Zhao family in the west of the city." County Magistrate Zhang was stunned for a moment upon hearing this. The Zhao family from the west of the city. The Zhao family whose eldest son holds an official position in Zhengzhou? County Magistrate Zhang quickly changed his tune, saying that there was no rush to arrest anyone. "This case still requires a thorough investigation," Zhang Shan said, waving his hand. "It's not the Zhao family," County Magistrate Zhang said again, followed by a pause. Then his face resumed the same resolute expression as before. "How can we delay when someone's life is at stake? Bring the person to me now." He gave a cold snort when he said this. "Forcefully restore his dignity. Nonsense. Even if it's the Zhao family, so what? Killing requires paying with one's life. Do you think I will submit to tyranny?" Zhang Shan hurriedly flattered. "The nobleman is upright and unyielding. Naturally, he will not." As he said this, a look of embarrassment appeared on Zhang Shan's face. "But this Mr. Zhao's prospective father-in-law has quite a bit of power. I'm afraid I may not be able to bring him back." Magistrate Zhang raised his eyebrows. "Are you suggesting that I will be bribed? Who is it? Speak quickly." Zhang Shan quickly said in a nervous tone. "His future father-in-law is a county magistrate." Magistrate Zhang heard this and spurted out the tea in his mouth. He slowly put down the teacup. A smile suddenly appeared on Magistrate Zhang's face. He looked at Zhang Shan with a gentle expression on his face. He waved to him and said, "Come here. Come over here. I have something to tell you." Immediately after that, a continuous muffled sound came from the front hall of the county yamen. A moment later, Magistrate Zhang's chest heaved up and down. Pointing at him, he cursed loudly. "Get lost. Get out of here right now. These days I don't want to see you anymore." Zhang Shan rolled away to the door. Suddenly a voice came from behind. "Stop." Zhang Shan turned back, puzzled, and asked, "Is there anything else, master?" County Magistrate Zhang stood in the hall, with a serious expression on his face, asking, "Is what you just said true?" Zhang Shan nodded solemnly and said, "I have personally investigated it. Absolutely certain. If you don't believe me, you can send someone to Lin Wan's village to inquire." County Magistrate Zhang remained silent for a moment, then adjusted his official hat and said lightly, "The young lady will invite her close friends from her boudoir to visit Yangqiu City in 2 days. Her friend is the beloved daughter of the magistrate. You find Liang to protect them personally. If anything goes wrong, I will cut off your head." Do you understand clearly? Zhang Shan stood upright and solemnly said, "Listen carefully." County Magistrate Zhang scolded without looking back. "Listen carefully and get lost." Immediately, Zhang Shan gasped as he ran out of the main hall. Just then, Zhang Shan saw Limu standing at the door of the duty room. "Limu, I'm back." "Did County Magistrate Zhang agree?" Limu asked. Zhang Shan shook his head and replied, "He didn't agree. He even scolded me." Limu angrily tapped his head. "Why are you still so happy?" Then Limu shook his head and said, "Forget it. I'll do it my way." Zhang Shan waved his hand proudly and said, "No need. The mountain man has his own brilliant idea." Soon, Zhang Shan led him to the brothel. Limu was a bit speechless. "Is your brilliant idea just to squat across from the brothel? What exactly are we here for?" "The information I heard says that Zhao Yong is hardworking and diligent, strict with oneself, and usually spends time studying hard at home. Does he rarely go out?" Zhang Shan comforted and said, "Don't worry. According to my observations, Zhao Yong has been going to the brothel almost every day for the past 3 days. The frequency is almost catching up to Li Si, and I heard she is the daughter of our lord. Looks just like that. Otherwise, it would not be Zhao Yong's turn at all. I'm afraid Zhao Yong also knows. So I wanted to indulge and enjoy myself before getting married." Suddenly Zhang Shan changed the subject. With a smile, he said, "What if the daughter of the county magistrate sees this scene? What would she think?" Li Mu smiled knowingly at the words. He admitted that he was starting to look at Zhang Shan with new eyes. This fat guy with a round face and a full belly. Not everything in his head is money. Above the streets of Yangqiu City, 2 women walk together. The one with a well-proportioned figure is Chen Miao Miao, the daughter of the county magistrate. The slender one is Zhang Yi, the daughter of the Yangqiu City prefect. At this moment, Zhang Yi turned around and asked, "Will the son of the Zhao family appear today?" Zhang Shan, dressed in plain clothes, smiled and replied, "Don't worry, miss. I've inquired about it clearly. The young master from the Zhao family goes for a walk at this time every day. We will see him soon." Zhang Yi said to Chen Miao Miao beside her with a smile, "Sister Chen, don't worry. Although I have never met the young master from the Zhao family, but I have heard that he is very talented, diligent in his studies, and upright. You will know once you meet him later." Chen Miao Miao just smiled shyly, but her face was full of anticipation. She is on this trip for sightseeing. In fact, she wants to take an early look at the Zhao family's son, who she is going to marry. Limu was also dressed in plain clothes, sitting a few steps behind the 3 of them. He would occasionally glance up at them. According to Limu and Zhang Shan's plan, the daughter of a county official, spoiled and arrogant since childhood, intentionally came to Yangqiu City to sneak a peek at her future husband. If she sees Zhao Yong visiting the brothel, she will immediately confront him. This marriage will naturally be called off. As for what happens next, everything has become much easier. Zhang Shan pointed to the street below and said, "Miss Liang, that is the son of the Zhao family." Upon hearing this, Chen Miao Miao quickly stood up. She looked out the window and saw a handsome young man. Standing under a pavilion on the opposite side, he was chatting and laughing with several heavily made-up women. Chen Miao Miao's expression of anticipation instantly turned into anger, but she quickly suppressed it. Zhang Yi couldn't believe it and said, "How could Lord Zhao go to a brothel?" Chen Miao Miao's face showed an embarrassed expression. "Didn't you say he is a very upright person? Are you sure you haven't mistaken someone else?" Zhang Shan said firmly. "No, we saw him at the Zhao family the day before yesterday. I'm sure it's not a mistake." Chen Miao Miao was said to be autistic directly. At this moment, she feels extremely lost and despondent in her heart. After a while, she squeezed out a forced smile on her face and said, "He is a man. It is normal for him to go to these fireworks places. Besides, we are not married yet." Limu and Zhang Shan locked eyes. Both could see the confusion in each other's eyes. The development of the situation is not as they had expected. The temperament of this county magistrate's daughter is completely different from what they imagined. She actually forgave Zhao Yong so easily? After seeing Zhao Yong enter the brothel in person, Chen Miao Miao's mood deteriorated. At this moment, Zhang Yi stood up and said, "The tea is also finished. I know there is a nice roux shop nearby. Let's take my sister to have a look." Chen Miao Miao was not in the mood to play, but couldn't resist Zhang Yi's enthusiastic invitation. She had to follow her downstairs. When they walked onto the street, it so happened that they saw Zhao Yong walking out of the brothel. A charming woman was holding Zhao Yong's hand and speaking sweetly. "Young Master Zhao, in addition to that pair of bracelets, they also took a jade pendant into consideration." Zhao Yong touched a particularly perky area on her body. "Serve this young master well tonight, and I'll buy it for you tomorrow." The glamorous woman snorted disdainfully. "Then I'll wait for you to come over tonight." The glamorous woman suddenly remembered something at this moment. "I heard you are getting married? Does this mean you won't be able to come and play in the future?" Zhao Yong sighed. "My fiancée is as fat as a pig. If her father wasn't a county magistrate, How could I marry her? In any case, I'll come back after this period. Zhao Yong's words happened to be overheard by Chen Miao Miao. She instantly froze in place. Her expression turned extremely ugly at this moment. After a long while, Chen Miao Miao said, I want to take a walk alone. You don't have to follow. She watched as Chen Miao Miao walked away by herself. Limu shook his head and lamented, so kind and gentle. She really doesn't seem like the daughter of a powerful county magistrate. But her low self-esteem makes her vulnerable to being hurt easily. Zhang Shan sighed and said, she didn't turn against Zhao Yong. Our originally foolproof Plan A has also failed. It seems we have no choice but to proceed with Plan B. Limu paused and asked, when did you have Plan B? Zhang Shan gritted his teeth and said, I didn't plan to use this assassin originally. It looks like we have to use it now. Main Street of Yangqiu City. A brothel somewhere. A seductive woman followed a young man out. She took out a pair of bracelets from her sleeve and placed them in his arms. He took these and exchanged them for wine to drink. Come back tomorrow. I will give you another piece of jade pendant. Li Si did not accept the jade bracelet. I didn't even give you the money. You're still giving me things, said the seductive woman. It's all right. If you like it, wear it. If you don't like it, just give it away, Li Si said indifferently. You should know, I never accept gifts from girls. Keep it for yourself to enjoy. The alluring woman saw this and stopped struggling. Then she quickly asked, are you coming tomorrow? Li Si turned around and smiled. Let's see how it goes. He had just walked out of the brothel when he was held by the shoulders by two people. He turned his head and found that it was Zhang Shan and Limu. What are you doing? Zhang Shan asked solemnly. The organization has a very important task to assign to you. Limu added, go save a woman. Li Si became confused. Be specific, Limu said. Li Si refused without hesitation. Make that woman fall in love with you. I never touched the thing called love. Find someone else for this. Zhang Shan grabbed his arm and said, this is related to a murder case. Only you can help us now. But Li Si said firmly, I never do things that go against my principles. Think of another way. Suddenly, Zhang Shan asked, do you remember how Qingqing left you? Li Si's body shook. He looked at him with red eyes. Breathing gradually became heavy. He grabbed Zhang Shan's collar. He gritted his teeth and glared at the two of them. Zhang Shan said, the experience of a woman is very similar to yours. The difference is, Qingqing left you because of money. And that woman's fiancé left her for his own future. In order to marry the daughter of the county magistrate, he ruthlessly killed her, dumping her body in the wilderness. And that is not all. That vile creature even asked cultivators to scatter her soul. What we need to do now is, just let that vile creature face justice. Zhang Shan looked into Li Si's eyes and asked, such a poor girl. Are you really unwilling to help her? Li Si's forehead veins bulged. Eyes filled with bloodshot veins. Speak up. What do you want me to do? Li Si, who knew all the plans, left. Limu watched the departing figure and asked, can he really do it? Zhang Shan replied with absolute certainty. Women of Yangqiu City. Regardless of whether it is a young girl or a young woman, from the age of 18 to 80. There is nothing he can't handle. He went to the brothel. Those women would even pay him to come back again next time. Chen Miao Miao walked on the street feeling lost and disappointed. She never expected that their trip to Yangqiu City this time would end up like this. Her future husband's character turned out to be so despicable. It seems that he was only interested in her father's power when he agreed to the marriage. She was too naive. How could anyone in this world like a woman like her? Thinking of this, a wave of sorrow swept through her heart. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard. She kept her head down and walked on. Accidentally bumped into someone. Chen Miao Miao's body trembled. The person was bumped and flew out, falling to the ground. Li Si quickly got up and asked with concern, are you all right, girl? Chen Miao Miao shook her head. She was stunned in place when she looked at that young man. Because of her figure, except for her parents, all eyes looking at her carried a hint of peculiarity, more or less. But never has anyone's gaze been like that of the young man in front of me. It carried a hint of anxiety and concern, with nothing else but clarity. Li Si saw that she was fine. He smiled and asked, my name is Lishan. May I ask for the young lady's name? Chen Miao Miao's cheeks instantly turned a blush. Without knowing his own identity, no one has ever spoken to herself in such a tone before. She blushed and lowered her head shyly, whispering, Chen Miao Miao. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. At the gate of the county government office, Zhang Yi looked at Chen Miao Miao strangely and asked, Sister Chen, are you leaving so early? This parting, when will we meet again, I wonder? Chen Miao Miao suddenly held her hand. Thank you so much, she said, reluctant to part. Because of you, I was able to come here and see him. Zhang Yi was momentarily stunned. Asked with some puzzlement, is he Zhao Yong? Chen Miao Miao shook her head. No, he is a very special person. Only he doesn't mind my appearance and figure. He said only this version of me can satisfy his heart. There's no room for anyone else. He really likes me. Zhang Yi said anxiously. Sister Chun, don't let anyone deceive you. Chun Miao Miao smiled and said, I'm not the same as you. What can he deceive me with? After returning this time, I will tell my father. I am not marrying Zhao Yong anymore. I will wait for him, he said 3 years later. Wait for him to finish the mourning period. He will come to my house to propose. Chun Miao Miao has left. Limu and Zhang Shan also learned from Zhang Yi. She will cancel the marriage with the Zhao family after she returns. Limu sighed inwardly. A woman's intelligence really drops in a straight line when in love. Li Si only used a fake name and a fake identity. He just deceived her heart. Zhang Yi sighed softly and said, I really don't know if what we are doing is right or wrong. Limu thought for a moment and said, if she really married a beast like Zhao Yong, that would be the greatest tragedy. What we are doing is a good deed. Zhang Yi looked at him strangely and said, Limu, you've changed. The old you would never say such things. Limu smiled and replied, people always change. After experiencing death once, I've also figured some things out, Limu said reflectively. Zhang Yi praised him. This time, thanks to you all. Once this case is over, I will go to my dad to reward you all, Limu expressed gratefully. Zhang Shan then breathed a sigh of relief. All right, let's go back and play cards, he said. Suddenly, he noticed the person in the corner. Li Si was leaning against the wall, looking up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, lost in thought. Limu leaned against him and asked, how did you do it? To make a woman fall for you in 3 days. Li Si replied calmly, a wolf's heart can only trade for a dog's lungs. The best way to make a woman genuinely care for you is to genuinely care for her as well. Genuine feelings can only be exchanged with genuine feelings. Limu asked again, have you genuinely cared for Miss Chin? Li Si looked indifferent and said, I have genuinely cared for every girl. Limu shook his head and sighed. It seems that your sincerity is really worthless. Li Si said with a self-deprecating smile. Sincerity was never valuable to begin with. Limu fell silent for a moment. He patted his shoulder and said, some people are better off not meeting. Some people are better off forgotten. Li Si suddenly looked at him and said, the miss is right. Limu, you have really changed. A virgin who hasn't even held a woman's hand. To even tell me these things. Limu couldn't be bothered to argue with him. What are your plans in 3 years? Are you really going to the magistrate's residence to marry her? Li Si's face showed a faint, bitter smile. She is a good girl. I am not worthy of her. The county city of North County. In the magistrate's mansion, a secret guard half knelt on the ground and said, reporting to the master, the young lady does not intend to marry Zhao Yong. The middle-aged man stood up and asked in surprise, how can she refuse the marriage just like that? What exactly is going on? Said the man. The secret guard raised his head and said, replying to the master, Mrs. Trip to Yangqiu City this time is a fake. In fact, she wanted to meet Zhao Yong first. But I didn't expect that Zhao Yong's character is very different from his reputation. He spends all day in brothels, and he comes out in less than a quarter of an hour. The middle-aged man said doubtfully, a quarter of an hour? After speaking, a pensive expression appeared on his face. It's still barely passable. The secret guard said, a quarter of an hour. It's the time it takes for him to enter the brothel and come out. He might also need to take a bath. The middle-aged man angrily smashed the teacup onto the table. Then he said somewhat speechlessly, we need to reconsider Miao Miao's marriage. The undercover guard thought for a moment and said, Miss encountered a man named Li Si in Yangqiu City. It seems like she has developed feelings for him. But he has concealed his true name and identity. He also made a 3-year agreement with the young lady. Sir, could that person have ulterior motives? The middle-aged man stroked the short beard on his chin. The agreement was set by him. Whether he has ulterior motives, it is beyond anyone's control. Originally, Zhao Yong had a fiery constitution that complemented Miao Miao's physique. It took this official a long time to find them. If the two of them come together, it can make up for Miao Miao's congenital defects and lead her onto the path of cultivation. What a pity. After he finished speaking, he suddenly changed the subject. But since Miao Miao likes that person named Li Si, let's forget about the Zhao family's matters. Zhao residence in Yangqiu City. Magistrate Zhang knew about it even earlier than the Zhao family. The news of the cancellation of the marriage between Zhao Yong and the county magistrate's daughter has spread. They had just left the Zhao family when Magistrate Zhang sent someone to arrest Zhao Yong. Known as the Lin Wan case, the county Yaman's only concern is the county magistrate's involvement. Now the Zhao family and the county magistrate's office are no longer related. Magistrate Zhang no longer has any concerns as well. Upon the public court, following the powerful sound that echoed out, County Magistrate Zhang slammed the hall table fiercely, then pointed at Zhao Yong and angrily shouted, Zhao Yong, you should know why I am targeting you. You still haven't confessed honestly. Zhao Yong flatly denies loudly. I did not kill anyone. Wanner is my fiancée. How could I possibly kill her? Mother of Zhao Yong stood behind him crying and pleading. It's a miscarriage of justice. Our Yong is just a child. How could he possibly kill someone? The county magistrate Zhang glanced at her indifferently and said, I wouldn't arrest people without evidence. We have found the body of Miss Lin Wan. The woman was stunned for a moment, then started crying. My poor daughter-in-law. Your death is so tragic. Sir, you must help us. Capture the murderer and bring them to justice. County Magistrate Zhang waved his hand, and a dark aura rose in the hall. Then County Magistrate Zhang angrily shouted, Zhao Yong, did you really not kill Lin Wan? Raise your head and look at who she is. Zhao Yong lifted his head in surprise and doubt. The woman's face slowly emerged in front of him. Zhao Yong let out a ghostly scream in fright, and then his face instantly turned pale and bloodless. He directly passed out. Magistrate Zhang doesn't care about you so much. Picked up the official seal and flung it over. Zhao Yong was convicted of intentional homicide. Sentenced to be executed by beheading 3 days later. The woman held onto the head of the Zhao family, crying bitterly. Sir, please save Yonger. He is our only child. The middle-aged man sighed. He is a life. Others are lives too. After saying that, he left without looking back. 3 days later, Zhao Yong will be executed at the market. Li Mu stood below the platform, looking at the executioner's knife. Feeling a bit nervous in his heart, Zhang Shan said, This knife is extraordinary. When the knife falls, not only will heads roll, but 3 souls and 7 spirits will also be extinguished together. This is to prevent criminals from turning into vengeful spirits and causing harm after death. Magistrate Zhang dropped a command token and said solemnly, The time has come. Execute. With a click, the command token fell to the ground. The executioner raised the knife in his hand. The blade flashed. Zhao Yong's head rolled off. Amid the cries of the crowd at Kaisher-ko, Magistrate Zhang looked at the emptiness beside him with no remorse. Miss Lin Wan, this is all our county can do. Zhao Yong is dead. I hope you will not hold grudges and walk the evil path to harm the world in the future. In the void, only its sound is heard and its shadow is not seen. Thank you, sir. Lin Wan will always remember the teachings of the sir. County Magistrate Zhang shook his head. This county is ashamed. It is not deserving of the young lady's gratitude. If you want to thank someone, thank Li Mu and the others instead. On the day Zhao Yong was beheaded, an incident that sparked heated discussions also occurred in Yangqiu City. The head of the Zhao family sold off the mansion and shops on the same day. He dismissed all maids and servants and donated all his possessions. He left Yangqiu City and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, a tall and thin man stopped someone and asked, Those few young constables also have courage. What are their names? The passerby thought for a moment and said, Limu, Zhangshan, and Li Si. It seems to be these few. The tall, thin man nodded. A smile appeared on his face. Then he waved goodbye to the passerby. He turned around and disappeared into the crowded stream of people. Limu's home. Lu Hanyin and Wan just returned from the lively visit to the market at Kaisher-ko. They saw Limu eating duck blood hot pot at that moment. Wan's face turned pale in an instant. Duck blood reminded her of the scene where heads rolled on the ground. Her stomach immediately churned. Wan quickly covered her mouth and turned to run. Limu said, Perfect timing. Want something to eat? Lu Hanyin said disdainfully, No, thanks. You have a really big heart. After saying that, she remembered something. She asked, I heard those constables say. Did you take on that case to frame Zhao Yong and get justice for Miss Lin Wan?
Limu proudly nodded.
That's right. It's me. Lu Hanyin asked in astonishment, Aren't you afraid of the Zhao family? Aren't you afraid of the magistrate? Limu said fearlessly, Why should I be afraid? Anyway, I don't have much time left to live. Before I die, I will kill a few more scoundrels and beasts. Do some good deeds for the people. It's worth living in this world. Lu Hanyin blushed. With a look of admiration in her eyes, she looked at Limu. At this moment, Zhang Shan's voice came from outside the door. Limu, come out quickly. The county magistrate has rewarded us with 2 months' salary. But Limu's attention is not on this at all. He looks towards Lin Wan following behind Zhang Shan. Lin Wan expresses her gratitude. Zhao Yong has already been punished. Thank you, master, for being fair to Lin Wan. Limu is thinking with some doubt. Miss Lin Wan has avenged a great enmity. How much gratitude will there be for this joy? Immediately followed by a sudden vision. A dazzling red light suddenly appeared on Lin Wan's body, instantly flooding Limu's courtyard. Whether human or monster, the stronger the power of emotions. Limu immediately began to perform the guidance technique. In just an instant, he felt his body filled with something, and Lin Wan's grateful joy continued to overflow continuously. Limu wanted to stop the guidance, but found that he couldn't stop at all. With a puff sound, he sprayed out a mouthful of blood. Then he fainted. When Limu woke up again, he found himself lying on his own bed. Lu Hanyin standing in front of the bed with a worried look on her face. Are you okay? Why did you suddenly faint and vomit so much blood?
Limu consoled. Infine.
I'm used to fainting early. Zhang Shan walked over with a complex expression and asked, Do you really only have 6 months? Leader knows? Limu nodded. She knows. The worry on Lu Hanyin's face did not diminish. I'll still take you to see the doctor. Limu shook his head. I'm fine now. You guys go back first. I want to rest alone for a while. After Zhang Shan and Lu Hanyin left, Lin Wan just walked over from the corner mumbling, Sir, your body. Limu smiled and said, Don't worry. Zhao Yong is dead now. What are your plans next? Are you going to Yudu? Lin Wan nodded and said, That is where I should go. Limu said, Then let's go. After all, Yudu is the paradise for demon cultivation. Lin Wan bowed to him 3 times. This is goodbye. I do not know if we will meet again in this lifetime. If there is a next life, the young lady is willing to be an ox or a horse to repay your kindness. After speaking, Lin Wan's figure gradually became illusory until it disappeared. Limu bowed towards the void and muttered in his mouth, Wishing you a smooth journey. We will meet again if destined. Limu sat cross-legged on the bed. He could feel the surging and overwhelming joy within his body. A hint of excitement appeared on his face. Close your eyes. As he guided the flow of energy, he muttered softly, 9 repetitions of the Su Qi technique, repressing evil intentions. Celestial beasts guard the gate. Delicate women hold the key. Gentle and flexible in handling the situation. Let us be at peace together. Do not act rashly. Watch and observe the source. After a moment, his eyes suddenly opened wide. He spoke out loudly, Sure go. Condense. As the word condense fell, countless red lights in his body all disappeared into his flesh. At the same time, Limu only felt as if something was added to his body, yet it seemed like there was nothing there at all. But the magical power within his body had increased several times in that instant just now. This meant that his first Pua had already formed. The role of Shurgo is to be vigilant, allowing him to sense approaching danger in any situation. Not only that, concentrating the mana growth in the body during Pio can enable him to cast Taoism spells that he couldn't cast before. Limu thought about it. He made a hand seal with one hand and softly said, The universe knows no bounds. Borrowing the power of Qin Kuan, the spell comes from the heart. Endlessly thriving. Soldier. Suddenly a crisp sound of a sword ringing in his ears. At the same time, the Qinghong sword that Limu placed on the table unsheathed itself. It floated in the air, its blade humming incessantly. With a slight movement of his mind, Limu, he reached out and firmly gripped it in his hand. The first word of the 9-character mantra is thunder. The effect of the second word is surprisingly to control magical treasures and swords in the air. Only cultivators at the 3rd realm or higher can master it. The existence of the second word mantra directly helped Limu bridge the gap in this realm. However, the downside is, controlling the magic weapon at his current level consumes a lot of mana. It only took a moment just now. He felt all the mana in his body being completely drained. His head also felt a bit dizzy. Limu then laid down on the bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, he suddenly woke up from his dream. He suddenly jumped up from the bed. A figure crept up on him while he was sleeping soundly and subdued him, pinning him down on the bed. It was all done on pure instinct. After subduing the person, Limu realized that something was not right. His hands felt unusually soft at that moment. He subconsciously touched a few more times. It felt really good. Lu Hanyin said irritably, Limu, where are you touching? Remove your hand now. Limu was shocked. He quickly explained.
I'm sorry.
I thought someone was ambushing us. Lu Hanyin was countered by him in a humiliating position on the bed. She struggled twice but couldn't break free. Angrily she said, Let go quickly. You hurt me. Limu quickly let go and explained with an embarrassed expression, I'm sorry, Miss Lu. I really didn't mean to. Lu Hanyin rubbed her sore wrist and sighed. Forget it. You are a constable. It's normal to be vigilant. I made some chicken soup for Wan Wan. I'll bring you a bowl too. You are weak. Drinking it will nourish your body. Limu asked in surprise, What happened to Wan Wan? Lu Hanyin said somewhat helplessly, It's because she is timid herself. In the morning, she kept pestering me to go see the excitement. But when she really saw that scene, she got scared. She started having a fever when she came back. If she's still not feeling well tomorrow, she might have to see a doctor. But she doesn't like taking medicine. Limu thought for a moment. According to Lu Hanyin's description, Wan Wan seemed to be shocked for the first time after witnessing the execution. At this point, he said, Ordinary medicine has little effect. Taoist talismans are quite effective for calming and focusing the mind. I'll draw one for you, Lu Hanyin said excitedly. Can you also draw talismans? Limu didn't answer. Instead, he took out paper and a brush. Lu Hanyan asked persistently, do you really know how to draw talismans? Why haven't I heard you mention it before? Limu found her noisy and pushed her out of the room directly. You know about my illness. We have to try every method. Wait outside the door for a while. I will call you when the painting is done, said the hollow voice before the door closed. Limu leaned against the door and sighed. He is now in a difficult situation and finds it hard to extricate himself, blaming himself for saying he drew a talisman when he has never drawn one in the first place. Is it too late to learn how to draw talismans now? At this moment, Lu Hanyan's voice came from outside the door. Limu, are you okay? Why is there a sound of wailing? If it is not possible, you don't have to force it. I went to the pharmacy to get medicine, and it was the same. Limu quickly replied, this is a necessary process for drawing talismans. Don't worry, it will be done shortly. After speaking, Limu sighed again. This is his first time drawing a talisman. Li Qing is not here, and he has nowhere to seek advice. He can only explore it slowly on his own. In a short while, he has already ruined 10 sheets in a row. The judgment method for the success or failure of the seal talisman is very simple. The seal talisman that retains its power after being drawn is successful. It is a successful talisman. The talisman that loses its power is no different from waste paper. Limu summarized the reasons for failure. The conclusion drawn is when drawing a talisman. His mind cannot be fully focused. He cannot fully enter the state of drawing the talisman. Without being completely focused, the actions of drawing the talisman become disjointed. The fluctuation of power will result in the failure of making the talisman. Limu suddenly thought of a way. He formed hand seals with one hand and silently recited in his mind, with a calm and clear mind, I remain unfazed even if the sky falls. After finishing reciting the calm mind mantra, Limu's expression was calm. The ancient well in his heart is calm without ripples. He has entered the mode of the wise. Dipping his pen in ink, the tip of the pen moves quickly on the paper. In a moment, another talisman takes shape in his hand. This talisman seal seems ordinary. It is not the same as the discarded talismans on the ground. But holding it in hand, you can feel the magic flowing in those talismans. He has obviously successfully drawn the talismans. Making talismans is a painstaking task. He failed more than a dozen times in a row before succeeding. The little magic power in Limu's body has been almost exhausted. His head also started to feel dizzy. At this time, Lu Hanyan walked in from outside. Looking at the scattered waste paper on the floor and Limu slumped on the chair, Lu Hanyan said, what were you doing just now? Is it possible? The next moment she realized. Then becomes ashamed and indignant. Limu is at the energetic age. Do some things that should be done at this age. She can understand, but he offended himself at noon. It made Lu Hanyan have to wonder who his fantasy object really was. Watching Lu Hanyan's face go from red to white to blue, Limu knew she must have misunderstood something. She quickly stood up from the chair and said, I was just drawing a talisman, Lu Hanyan said suspiciously. Drawing a talisman? Limu quickly explained. Wanwan was alarmed. The usual medication won't work for her. I then drew a calming talisman. After drinking the talisman water, the effects will take immediate effect. Lu Hanyan temporarily forgot whether Limu had just been masturbating. Pick up the talisman and head back. Then I'll go back and give it a try. After Lu Hanyan left, Limu lay contentedly on the chair. It was exhilarating to succeed on the first try, especially as someone who had never drawn a talisman before. What other amazing uses of this clear heart decision have I not yet discovered? Limu's door was pushed open by someone. Limu looked at them in surprise. Why are you two so excited? Lu Hanyan asked eagerly, do you have a talisman that makes you never gain weight no matter how much you eat? Limu thought for a moment and replied, there is a talisman called Talisman of Youthfulness that can make people maintain a youthful appearance and prevent aging. It should also have the effect of helping one maintain their physique. Lu Hanyan's beautiful eyes sparkled radiantly. She suddenly grabbed Limu's hand and exclaimed excitedly, I want it! I want it! Limu tried to pull back his hand. He found that he couldn't break free for a moment. His gaze naturally fell on that pair of huge weapons. Limu grimly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He forced himself to look away and said with a smile, I'll try to help you draw something when I have time tonight. Limu quickly put on his clothes and escaped from home. As he rubbed his sore wrist that Lu Hanyan had grabbed, he thought to himself, Miss Lu seems to have the type of physique that gains weight even by just drinking water. No wonder he gets so excited when he hears about the resplendent talisman. Limu was filled with doubt. Suddenly, a faint fragrance came from behind. At this moment, Li Qing shouted, Limu. Limu turned around at the sound and asked, Leader, when did you come back? Li Qing looked at him and said somewhat unexpectedly, Your skill has improved so much in just a few days. Have you already successfully condensed a pu? Limu smiled and said, thanks to Miss Linwan. Otherwise, the first pu wouldn't have condensed so quickly. He then handed the Qinghong sword in his hand to Li Qing. Please take this sword back, leader. I now have certain self-defense abilities. The tasks you encounter in your daily life are more dangerous. You need it more than I do. Li Qing took over the Qinghong sword. After thinking for a moment, she added, wait a moment. She handed another sword similar to the Qinghong sword to Limu. This sword is for you. It is the sword I used to refine the pu realm. It's perfect for you right now. With it, if you encounter the ordinary resentment imp again, you can slay it with a single sword. There is also a sword manual that I left on the desk in the valuables room. Remember to practice diligently. Limu is not pretentious either, although he is unwilling to owe others anything. But he will not refuse others' goodwill. He prefers not to make excuses. Then he will keep this friendship in his heart. When the opportunity arises in the future, he will slowly repay it. He is the same towards Lu Hanyan as he is towards Li Qing. It's just that, in terms of status, Li Qing's status is higher than his. In terms of strength, Li Mu's are no match for her. In a short period of time, Li Mu couldn't think of an opportunity to repay her. Li Mu unconsciously arrived at the bookstore. After submitting the manuscript for Strange Tales from a Chinese studio last time, he was preoccupied with Lin Wan's case. He had never inquired at the bookstore. It was not until today that there was an opportunity. Limu walked up to the counter and said, please help me check if the manuscript I submitted last time has been selected. The shopkeeper cast a sidelong glance at him and asked, may I help you? Name? Limu said, Pu Songling. The shopkeeper flipped through a thick book for a long time. Your novel Talisman does not meet our requirements. You should go check out other places. Limu is a bit discouraged. Another World is a masterpiece that impresses the reader. It may not be possible to replicate the glory here. There will always be someone with a discerning eye. Limu then moved towards a second room, then on to the third room. Each chapter is so short, only a few hundred words. Are you writing a novel? Do you have such a short novel? I just started reading, and it's already over. Our advice is to cut it off. Continuing to write this would be a waste of time. I don't know how many times it has been rejected. Limu walked out of the last bookstore, looking up at the scorching sun overhead. He sighed inwardly. Writing novels really is a dead-end road. The narrative style of Strange Tales from a Chinese studio does not seem to be recognized by these bookstores. It looks like he will have to think of another way to make money. The Union Pavilion is the last bookstore that Limu visited. Originally, it was rejected outright. But somehow, just as Limu was about to leave, the shopkeeper chased after him. His attitude was completely different from before. Soon Limu was selling them for 10 silver coins per roll. He signed a contract with the shopkeeper of Union Pavilion. After Limu left, the shopkeeper walked slowly upstairs. Miss, everything is arranged. He was given the highest price. The woman said lightly, in the future, try to fulfill whatever requests he has. As for the manuscript, he can submit it whenever he wants. Do not rush him. The shopkeeper sighed. But we will lose a lot of money this way. The woman said firmly, just do as I say. Limu muttered all the way out of the county town. He sold the books for 10 liang of silver. First, he paid back the money owed to Miss Liu. Then he needs to prepare well to condense the cane. At this point, he heaved a sigh. People from prestigious sects have masters and resources. I rely on borrowing cultivation techniques and equipment. Limu was walking alone on the road. When he was not far from Baishui Water Bay, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Ever since the first battle had taken place, Limu's alertness increased significantly. Just now, he came from the direction of that giant tree. Sensed a creepy feeling. Not long after, a tall, thin figure peeled off from the tree trunk. He said somewhat surprised, I didn't expect you to be a cultivator too. No wonder you were able to find my trail. It seems that my incompetent junior brother died at your hands, didn't he? Limu suddenly realized something. He died at the hands of Limu. Only the dwarf hired by the Zhao family. Unexpectedly, the other party also has a senior brother. Limu stepped back a few steps and angrily said, Who are you? What do you want by following me? Limu's gaze kept sizing him up. This person's eyes are not like a normal person's. Inside the eyeballs are actually a pair of vertical pupils. A normal person cannot have pupils like this. Limu almost instantly guessed the reason. Shape-shifting monster. The tall, thin man said at this time. Although my junior brother is not talented, but he has also cultivated the congeal Hun technique. The fluctuations of your mana are so subtle. At most, only refined one pa. Tell me, how did you kill him? Limu did not answer. The strength of the person in front of me is at least at the third realm. Limu's only killer move is the first word of the 9-character mantra, Thunder Method. If I cannot kill with one strike, then I will surely be the one who dies. The tall, thin man sneered. Not speaking? I will skin you alive in a moment. Search your soul, and I will know everything. Just at this moment, Limu's lips moved slightly. He uttered a syllable softly. With a loud bang, a thunderbolt suddenly descended. It struck the top of the tall, thin man's head. Limu was just about to let out a sigh of relief. Suddenly, his eyes' pupils shrank abruptly. When the lightning struck down, the tall, thin man's figure disappeared into thin air. Only a yellow talisman seal was left behind in the original spot. The tall, thin man's figure appeared in another direction. At this moment, he no longer had the calmness from earlier. His face was pale. His face was full of fear and shock as he exclaimed, "Lay Fa. If it weren't for this substitute talisman that blocked for me just now, I would have lost my life today. No, it is not right. You, who haven't even refined the 7 per talisman, how could it be Thunder Spell? This is not Thunder Spell. The casting of Thunder Spell won't be so fast. This is a Taoism spell." Limu's face at this moment became extremely ugly. Damn it. This guy actually has a substitute talisman. Limu once again formed hand seals in his hands. His lips trembled slightly. There was another loud bang. Another thunderbolt struck down. But the tall, thin man was well prepared. Flexibly dodged away. Limu gasped for breath. His mouth kept opening and closing constantly. One lightning bolt after another struck down, splitting the nearby ground into blackened pits one after another. But not a single lightning bolt struck the tall, thin man. At most, it just burned a hole in his pants. The tall, thin man went from initial panic to gradually becoming surprised. Finally, he looked at Limu with a mocking expression in his eyes. Chop it again. Even if you know the Taoism spell, so what? I will search for your soul. This Thunder Taoism spell is already mine. Limu's expression became more and more serious. The gap in realm is too large. I can't lock his position at all. The dwarf's talisman that immobilizes Zhang Shan is still there. If I can immobilize him for a moment. The tall, thin man suddenly spoke. A bright green tongue was spit out from his mouth, coiling around Limu's neck like a vine. Just as the dozens of feet-long tongue was about to reach Limu, Limu's palm suddenly turned over. A yellow talisman seal appeared in the palm of his hand. It stuck on the tongue extended by the tall and thin man. The extended tongue of the tall and thin man stayed fixed in midair. His body also froze for a moment. Just as he realized something was wrong, another roaring sound erupted. A bolt of lightning struck straight at the tall, skinny man's head. His clothes turned into flying ashes. His body also turned into charcoal in an instant. But just at that moment, a faint shadow slowly floated out of its charcoal-like corpse. Limu was greatly shocked. Is this Hunpo out of body? A huge lizard suddenly appeared. It roared furiously. Lowly blood feast. You dare to destroy my body. I will chew your Hunper into pieces, step by step. Rushed towards Limu from the void. Clapped Limu's hands together. Lips trembled. Gradually emitted golden light from the body. The shadow of the lizard was blocked by the golden light. Every attempt to approach was burned and pushed back. It looked coldly at Limu on the gloomy path. Understand the Buddha Cultivation Dharma Sutra. So what? I want to see how long your powers can last. Limu's body is shining brightly, but his heart has already sunk to the bottom of the valley. Baishui Water Bay is not far ahead. Limu clenches his teeth. He runs forward in big strides. The soul of the lizard spirit follows behind him coldly. I'll see how far you can run to. Today, no one can save you. Just at this moment, with a loud bang, the Buddhist beads in Limu's hands ran out of power. With a loud shatter, the Buddha's light on his body also disappeared in the next instant. Limu felt dizzy for a moment. Then his vision blacked out and he passed out on the ground. Completely unaware of what had happened. The lizards had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Seeing this, he burst into a big grin and rushed towards the fallen Limu with his mouth wide open. However, a graceful figure appeared behind him at some point. A hand grabbed its tail. The lizard angrily turned around and scolded. Who dares to obstruct Grandpa's good deeds? The woman in white smiled beautifully. Anyone who dares to move on my territory is looking for trouble. You are really bold. That hand looks very delicate, but it seems to have tremendous force, so it cannot break free. The lizard senses the breath of the woman in white. Its eyes are full of extreme fear. The lizard shivered and said, "Spare me." The woman in white looked indifferent. She took a deep breath. The soul of the lizard spirit then directly collapsed, turned into a mist, and was absorbed into her body. Suer's face showed a satisfied expression. The figure drifted downward. She looked at Limu and muttered, "Before long in cultivation, one would be able to severely injure a monster that has such a huge gap in realm. You are extraordinary." Suer lifted Limu up by the waist. disappear in the deep forest by the river. In Limu's dream, he was running for his life the whole time,